retired. He's an ex-boy who he fought in the Nigerian Civil War from 1967 to 1970 on the Biafran side. He also proceeded after the war to Nigerian Defense Academy as a member of Force 9 and graduated Best All-Round and won the coveted Sword of Honor award. You are welcome, sir. May I recognize the presence of Major General D.G. Alu, Deputy Chief of Policy and Plans, Army, and also for this symposium. You are welcome, sir. May I recognize the presence of Director General, Nigerian Army Resource Center, Major General G.A. Wahab, retired. Senior officers, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Any moment from now, the special guest of honor will arrive at this venue, accompanied by the chief hosts and other dignitaries. You are please requested to rise as the special guest of honor enters this hall. It is further requested that you please remain standing until the special guest of honor takes his seat. You have switch off your mobile phones. Thank you. recognize the presence of Air Vice Marshal F.J. Ogohi, the representative of Chief of Defense Intelligence. You are welcome, sir. May I recognize the presence of the Chief of Training, Army, Major General A.S. Ndalolo. You are welcome, sir. May I recognize the presence of Major General I.B. Maina, former Commandant, Army War College, Nigeria, and also representing the Chief of Operations, Army. You are welcome, sir. Recognize also Professor Ikenna Alumona, one of our discussants for today. You are welcome, sir. And also, may I recognize Professor C.B.N. Obobo, our guest lecturer for today. You are welcome. What's this? No. No. Okay, they want to know who is who. No, no, that's not how I do. So the first person to go. I know they say the special guest of honor is around. Yes, Alumona. senior officers, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Announcing the arrival of the special guest of honor, His Excellency Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. You're welcome, Your Excellency. You may please take your seats. A special guest of honor, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, Grand Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic. The Chief Host, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General O.O. Oluede, Nigerian Army Medal, represented by Major General P.E. Eremosele. The guest lecturer, moderator, discussants, members of Army War College, Nigeria Government Board, principal staff officers from Defense and Services Headquarters, Director Generals of Defense and Services Institutions, Commandants, Army War College, Nigeria, Commandants and Commanders of military institutions and establishment and formations here present, past Commandants of Army War College, Nigeria, senior officers, both serving and retired, especially our Civil War veteran here with us, Colonel Ekpeme retired, the Deputy Commandant, Director of Studies, Army War College, Nigeria, members of external faculty, Army War College, Nigeria, directors, members of faculty, and other staff of Army War College, Nigeria, our esteemed guests, participants of Army War College, Nigeria, Course 9 of 2025, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to T.Y. Buratai Auditorium, venue for the Army War College Nigeria Annual Symposium on the Nigerian Civil War. I am Colonel S.O. Agada, a member of faculty and the Master of Ceremony for today's occasion. At this point, I wish to seek the permission of the special guest of honor to present the safety brief for our venue today, before I quickly acquaint this distinguished audience with the key aspects of the program of events for this symposium. Thank you. Safety brief, please.
Welcome to T.Y. Buratai Auditorium, Army War College, Nigeria. Before acquainting you with the safety instructions, please permit me to orient you with T.Y. Buratai Auditorium. The auditorium is located on the second floor of the college complex extension. There are two staircases from the ground floor leading to the T.Y. Buratai Auditorium. These are Staircase A by the reception and Staircase B slightly ahead. There is also an elevator in between Staircases A and B. The auditorium has 5 entrance doors tagged Door 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These doors also serve as exit doors 1 to 5 respectively. On entrance into the auditorium, the stage is located on the left. The auditorium is divided into 2 major sections, Section 1 and Section 2. There are 6 aisles in the auditorium for ease of movement. On the rear of the auditorium is the door leading into the control room. Please note that the seats in the auditorium are numbered alphabetically in rows. For your convenience, there are male and female toilet facilities slightly ahead of staircase B. In the unlikely event of an emergency, please do not panic. Kindly adhere to the following instructions. Those seated on the stage and rows A to G are to exit the auditorium through exit doors 1 and 2. Turn right and use staircase A to the ground floor. Exit the building and move to muster point A by the security post ahead of the parking area. Those seated on rows H to M are to exit the auditorium using exit door 3. Use staircase B to the ground floor and exit the building onto muster point A by the security post. Furthermore, those seated on rows N to W and personnel in the control room are to exit the auditorium through exit doors 4 and 5. Turn right and use staircase B to the ground floor. Exit the building and move to muster points B on the right of the rear gate. In the event of power outage during emergency, the exit signs marked on reflective materials will help guide you to the exit doors. Physically challenged persons should be assisted by those seated next to them to evacuate the building through exit doors 1 or 2. Please do not make use of the elevator during emergencies. Exit the building using the staircase only. Should you forget any items, please do not go back to the building. Your safety is first. Please note, there is no scheduled fire drill at this time. Thank you for your attention and remain safe.
That was a safety brief. The Army War College, Nigeria, has had the Nigerian Civil War in its military history curriculum since its founding and has conducted 5 symposia on the Nigerian Civil War to better relate the operational level activities of the war and understand battlefield events and operational outcomes. For year 2025, the program of events is as follows. Very shortly, the Commandant, Army War College, Nigeria, will give his welcome address, and thereafter, the speaker his keynote address. Following this, there will be a short break for 10 minutes. On return from the break, the guest lecturer for today will be introduced, and thereafter, he will present his paper. Following the presentation of the paper, the moderator and the discussant will be humbly requested to take the stage and discuss the paper, following which the special guest of honor will give his concluding remarks. Immediately after the concluding remarks by the special guest of honor, the Chief of Army Staff will give his closing remarks, which will be followed by appreciation of our invited guest by the Commandant, which is the presentation of souvenirs. And following this, there will be a vote of thanks, and after the vote of thanks, we will be required to proceed downstairs in front of the administrative building for a group photograph. That is how the program for today will go. The special guest of honor, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I most respectfully invite a mentor, a role model leader, our Commandant, Army War College, Nigeria, Major General U.M. Alkali, to deliver the welcome address. The Commandant, sir.
The special guest of honor, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, Grand Commander, Order of the Federal Republic, former President, Federal Republic of Nigeria. Our chief host, the Chief of Army Oluede, the Chairman Governing Board of this prestigious institution, ably represented by Major General P.E. Eremosele, our guest lecturer, moderators, discussants, members of Army War College Governing Board here present, principal staff officers from Defense and Service Headquarters, Director Generals of Defense and Service Institutions, commandants and commanders of military institutions, establishments, and formations here present, past commandants of this institution, senior officers, both serving and retired, most especially our Civil War veteran, Colonel Ifeme, retired, the Deputy Commandant, Director of Studies of Army War College, Nigeria, members of external faculty, directors, members of faculty and other staff of the college, our esteemed guests, participants of Army War College Course 9 2025, members of the press, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I consider it a great privilege to respectfully welcome the special guest of honor to this symposium. Sir, the Army War College Nigeria is highly honored by your presence in our midst. I wish to also especially welcome the chief host of this symposium, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General O.O. Oluyede, Nigerian Army Medal, Member National Institute, who is suitably represented by Major General P. Eremosele, and who, despite numerous schedules, still honors the college's and venue for the 6th edition of the Nigerian annual Nigerian Civil War Symposium for participants of Army War College Course 9 2025. We are delighted to have you in our midst this morning, and we thank you immensely for sparing time out of your tight schedule to grace and add value to this occasion. These special guests of honor, sir, the chief host and Chief of Army Staff and our distinguished guests, the Nigerian Civil War Symposium is included in the military history module in order to learn from the past. This is in keeping with the popular maxim that, and I quote, "A generation that ignores history has no past or future," end of quote. The symposium provides an avenue to academical, operational, and tactical activities of the Nigerian Civil War for better comprehension of battlefield events and outcomes, to bring out useful lessons that could assist in addressing facing the nation. Towards achieving this goal, and experts in military history and retired officers who witnessed the war are invited to share their thoughts and personal experiences. The erudite composition of the resource persons always ensures the audience, particularly our participants, gain fresh and rewarding insights from issues to be discussed. The theme for the Nigeria Annual Civil War Symposium is the role of disinformation in the Nigerian Civil War. The choice of this theme was very deliberate, as it focuses on a critical role of leadership and decision-making process at the operational level, that is, the managing of the information space. This aligns closely with the leadership pillar of the command philosophy of the Chief of Army Staff, which is to consolidate the transformation of the Nigerian Army towards bequeathing a well-motivated and combat-ready force that can effectively discharge its constitutional responsibilities within a joint and multi-agency environment. Therefore, the choice of this was to do even better. Finally, I most sincerely welcome all to the 6th edition of this symposium and wish us all a most rewarding symposium. Thank you all, and God bless.
May we please give the commandants another resounding round of applause. The special guest of honor, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are now at the highest point of this great occasion. I have the honor and privilege to invite the special guest of honor, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, Grand Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic, former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to deliver the keynote address and declare the symposium open.
Sorry about that. BA. The chief host, the commandant, and the distinguished keynote speaker and members of course 9 2025 of the Army War College Nigeria. Let me start by thanking the commandant for inviting me. But not only inviting me, he came personally to draw me out of my cool and comfortable environment in Abeokuta and brought me here. Let me also congratulate the Army Chief of Staff and the Nigerian Army generally for this, what I call the Senior Middle Career Course. Because in my days, we have captain to major exam, where we have lieutenant to captain. It's not exam, it's test. Then we have captain to major exam. We have the staff college. And then after that, you either go to War College, which is now Defense College. There was no this intermediate, or what I call intermediate between Staff College and War College or Defense College, as it's called then, or NIPS, or if you have to go out, Royal College of Defense Studies. And I think this is very appropriate as the career progression, as part of career progression of senior officers as they go up. I am therefore delighted to be in your midst today for this symposium to discuss an important milestone in the annals of history of our dear nation, Nigeria. I wish to seize this opportunity to express my appreciation once again to the Commandant Army War College, Nigeria, and the faculty of the invitation, and the faculty rather, for the invitation extended to me to be part of this event. I always cherish every opportunity to be part of discussions at promoting peace, unity, equity, and progress of this country, Nigeria. I especially acknowledge the Chief of Army Staff, ably represented, the guest speaker, discussants, senior military officers, and other distinguished guests who have graced this symposium with their presence. I must not forget to also recognize one member of my own delegation in person of Chief Otumba Fashawe, who his experience with the military has not been a very faithful one, because he dared the military in his early life and he was punished for it. Please, let me also acknowledge my fellow veterans of the Civil War, and indeed all other great men who have worn or still wear the uniform in defense of our dear nation. When the commandant paid me a visit, I suggested that for a symposium like this, as many of the veterans on both sides that we can get should be invited, because that way we will have a very rich discussion and draw the right lesson from our symposium. My appreciation to you all is particularly profound, and may your sacrifice never go down in drain and in futility. Never go down the drain and in futility. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to refer to one of my favorite sayings, that a child that does not learn history will be told history. And what that means, being told history, means that the narrative and point of view will be of the teller to navigate the complexity and apparent confusion and uncertainty of today. You need the lessons and wisdom of yesterday. Winston Churchill also said, and I quote, "A nation that forgets its past has no future." And gleaning from these quotations, no doubt, we must be deliberate and diligent in the study of history, particularly military history, to bring out and apply valuable lessons for and future security challenges. History serves as the memory of the past, and will recall to serve the future. That's the memory. We need to recall it to serve the future. look at history this way again. If you lose your memory, you won't even remember what you ate last night. As bad as that. So for us to discard history is a very dangerous thing. Therefore, the inclusion of the study of the Nigerian Civil War in the Army War College Nigeria curriculum to enhance the capacities of operational level leaders to effectively apply the lessons from past campaigns and operational planning are very apt. Today, on a pivotal moment and very important period in Nigeria's history, the Civil War. This fratricidal conflict, which lasted from 1967 to 1970, a period of 30 months, left an indelible mark on our nation's collective memory and continue to shape it and our attitude. The war's complex causes, consequences, and lessons offer valuable insights for us all. The theme of this symposium, the role of disinformation in the Nigerian Civil War, is germane, especially in this era of asymmetric warfare. Disinformation, propaganda, psychological warfare, and propagation of false narratives and false news and false information are means through which a weaker force attempts to discredit a superior force in asymmetric wars. Disinformation played a significant role in the Nigerian Civil War, exacerbating tensions and influencing public opinion inside and outside the country. The same strategy is currently being employed by the insurgents in Northeast and other violent groups in other parts of Nigeria. In line with the theme, the symposium will therefore highlight the importance of media and information operations in conflict resolution and nation building. I commend the college for the choice of this theme and spending quality time on it. I have been informed that during this symposium, we will explore the historical context, key events, and lasting impacts of the war. Most importantly, we will discuss the ways in which Nigeria has progressed and the challenges that remain for us to handle. From the profile of the guest speaker, panelists, and other invited guests, I have no doubt in my mind that we are going to have a very rich and rewarding deliberation. And maybe what I did not learn in the battlefront, I will learn here. As we engage In these discussions, let us prioritize objectivity, unity, and nationalism. By understanding the past, we can better navigate the present and build a more equitable future for all Nigerians. I believe we should not run away from our history. Some people believe that the bad part of our history should be papered over. I believe that is wrong. The bad, the good, and the ugly make up what, of course, any human institution is the complexity of. Our collective reflections contribute to a deeper understanding of Nigeria's history and inform our path forward for unity, equity, and inclusivity. For you, the participants of Army War College, Army War Course 9/2025, you must use this singular opportunity to learn as much as you can. Open up new vistas and perspectives in your mind and find veritable ways of applying the lessons learned for the good of the Nigerian Army and indeed for the good of the nation at large. On this note, it gives me immense pleasure to declare the 6th edition of the Army War College Nigeria Symposium on the Nigerian Civil War open. Please, when I hope after the guest lecturer has given and on, if you want to throw a question at me, and I wish you fruitful and most rewarding deliberation. Thank you all.
Please be seated. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. May I humbly request that we give our special guest of honor another resounding round of applause. Special guest of honor, senior officers, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. May please observe a short break and reconvene in another 10 minutes, that is by 10 hours. Thank you very much. $10:20 hours, thank you. that girl went and messed me up. That tall girl, she went and asked him, so what is your name, what is your appointment? So she drove him, so he drove her away. Sir?
I'll get it for you. I'll get it for you.
So the two of them, him and DG, DRDB, I've already lost his initial note. This other person is DG Nigerian Army Welfare Immediate by guarantee. Major General Taiwo.
It's AI. Especially intelligence. AI.
I want to recognize the two of them.
I'll get it for you.
Sir, please, I just need his initial. Let me just recognize the two of them. So far so good, no?
No, excellent.
Yeah. Were you there when I introduced this man? Were you around?
Yes.
Because I got people were even clapping.
Yes.
I'm looking for opportunity to introduce him again.
Yes.
Maybe when he wants to talk again. I'll say, yes, I'll just say for the purpose of those that joined us late. But I'll just say permit me to introduce him once again.
I'll get it for you.
One. Sir, nothing concerns me with camera, sir. What is, sir? No, me, I know, yes, sir. But I told him how to flash on. No, sir. Fine, thank you, sir. Nice to see you, sir. After some months, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Check 1 2 check. Okay.
recognize in our presence Major General E.A. Ndagi, Director General, Defense Research and Development Bureau. You're welcome, sir. May I also recognize the presence of Director General, Nigerian Army Welfare Limited by guarantee, Major General A.I. Taiwo. You're welcome, sir. Special guest of honor. You may be seated. A special guest of honor, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is time to listen to the lecture for this symposium entitled The Role of Disinformation in Nigerian Civil War, to be presented by Professor C.B.N. Ogbogbo, Vice Chancellor, Admiralty University of Nigeria, Ibuza, Delta State. But before I request him to deliver the lecture, permit me to give you a brief rundown of an abridged version of his resume. Professor Christopher Ndubisi Ogbogbo was born on 10 October 1963. He hails from Delta State. Our esteemed guest lecturer has attended several institutions and earned several academic qualifications, some of which are Bachelor of Arts in History, Masters in History, and Doctor of Philosophy, all from University of Ibadan. He also holds a Master's in Law from Obafemi Awolowo University. Our resource person is a fellow and member of several learned, some of which are Fellow of Peace and Conflict Studies Program, Institute of African Studies, University of Ibadan. Fellow, Nigerian Army Resource Center. President, Historical Society of Nigeria. Others are Member, American Studies Association, Nigeria. Members, African Studies Association in the United States. Member of Council Historical Society of Nigeria from 2004 till date, and Vice President, Association of African Historians from 2018 till date. Our seasoned guest lecturer is a recipient of several awards and prizes to his credit, some of which are History Departmental Prize for Best Graduating Student, 1984-85 session, University of Ibadan. Faculty of Law Prize for Best Graduating Postgraduate Student, 2002 session, Obafemi Awolowo University. And Humanities Staff Development Grant Award. Our guest lecturer has held positions, some of which are Member, Editorial Board of Nsukka Journal of History, Editor, Nigerian Army Resource Center Journal, and currently is the Vice Chancellor, Admiralty University of Nigeria, Ibuza, Delta State. Our guest lecturer is happily married with 5 children. Please join me with a round of applause as I invite our guest lecturer to the lectern to deliver his lecture. Guest lecturer, sir.
The special guest of honor, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, GCFR. Permit me to adopt the protocol very well established by the commandant of the college, but also to recognize one or two persons very dear to me in this hall. Major General Wahab retired, who I call him my mentor in the field of military studies generally. I also want to appreciate General S. Ndalulu. I like to observe that my first outing to the Nigerian Army War College was when it was under the jurisdiction of Major General Ofoche, for which I appreciate and thank him. Today, I like to very specially appreciate, as is customary, the commandant of the War College, all the directing staff, and the course participants for inviting me to share my views on the Nigerian Civil War. I bring you greetings from the Admiralty University of Nigeria in Ibusa, Delta State. You know that that locale was one of the major theaters of the Nigerian Civil War and bears directly to the discussion we'll be having this morning. I'd like to thank all of you for the opportunity to brainstorm with you on an aspect of the history of the Nigerian Civil War at this 6th Army War College of Nigeria's Symposium on the Nigerian Civil War. It is not always that you find institutions in Nigeria that discuss the Civil War. As a professor of history in Ibadan, I know that my last outing as head of department, I made every effort to convince the Senate of my university that a course be floated on the Nigerian Civil War. And I know the emotions that that discussion generated. Anyway, as a department, we've been able to at least supervise about 5 PhD theses on various aspects of the Nigerian Civil War. And so I commend the Army War College for being able to do that. Float a course on the Nigerian Civil War and discuss it every year. It is a truism that Nigeria fought a brutal fratricidal 30-month war that led to the death of millions of Nigerians between 1967 and 1970. A good number of the issues that led to this imbroglio are present and plaguing the Nigerian nation after 55 years of the war. Incompetent management of the state and the profligacy of the political leadership play a major role in this. It's a recurring decimal that has continued to plague the nation. It will appear that not much lessons have been learned, especially by the successive political leadership of the country. If you look at how the country is being managed and what happened immediately after independence and the level of profligacy that took place then and what we're seeing now, you will appreciate that not much difference exists. I'd like to say kudos to the Nigerian Army for having the courage to venture into this very sensitive area of Nigerian history. Of course, as historians, we know that we have, for some countries, 30, for others, 50-year rule before venturing into such. But even after 50 years, we're still very passionate, very sentimental about interrogating the history of the Nigerian Civil War. I like the fact that our former president, when he read out his speech, enjoined us to have the courage. It is something we necessarily have to do to interrogate various aspects of the war, know the history for the purposes of what lessons there is to learn. A major reason data of knowledge production in the Nigerian Army, and I have participated for about 5-6 years, is for the lessons learned in any work, in any discussion such as this. We must ask the question, what are the lessons? And the purpose is so that the future generation and even the current one don't make the same mistakes. If the Germans have the courage and the Jews to learn about Holocaust, we must have that also determination to study those dark ends of our history so that we don't walk the same path for purposes of the future. A concatenation of factors that need not delay us here led to the Nigerian Civil War. From July 1967 to January 1970. During the located between the eastern region and the rest of Nigeria, it was clearly an unequal match, both in terms of population size, land mass, and weaponry. For our purpose, we have to quickly establish this has continued to color our perspectives on the war. Like I have mentioned earlier, we don't teach Nigerian Civil War history in most of our institutions. The intensity of this information has made intellectual engagement on it very emotive. Hence, analysis and conclusions on various aspects of the war are often not borne out by historical facts. They are riddled with distortions. When we conceptualize this information, this statement will become more apt. A critical question to pose is to ask, who was disinforming who, and to what end was this done? Also, we could wish to know what impact disinformation played in the Nigerian Civil War. Of course, the literature is very rich. As you go into primary research, you find tons of materials that indicate the role of disinformation in the Nigerian Civil War. And so, in the next